People believe love is loud. They think it lives in grand gestures, dramatic confessions, and youthful passion. But real love is quieter. It learns how to sit still. It learns how to wait. And one day it learns how to grow old. This is the story of Daniel and Sarah. Not a story of perfection, but of presence. Not a story of forever spoken easily, but of forever earned slowly. It began on an ordinary evening, under an impatient sky. Rain had soaked the city without warning. The roads reflected broken lights, and people rushed as if running away from their own thoughts. Daniel stood at a bus stop, his jacket damp, his shoulders heavy. Another interview had ended in polite rejection. Another promise of, "We'll get back to you," had already started fading. Small. That was when he noticed her. She stood a little away from the crowd, holding a book tightly against her chest, as if it were something fragile. Rainwater slid past her hair, yet she didn't seem bothered. There was calm in her stillness, a calm that didn't belong to the storm around them. Daniel didn't know why, but he spoke. "Looks like the bus is late." She looked at him, surprised, then smiled softly. "Life is too." That was all. No introduction, no names exchanged, but something shifted. They met again. Not intentionally, not planned. The same bus stop, the same quiet space between strangers. Sometimes they spoke, sometimes they didn't. She listened more than she spoke, and when she did speak, she chose her words carefully, as if she respected their weight. Daniel found himself telling her things he usually kept hidden, his worries, his fears, his uncertainty about the future. Sarah never tried to fix him. She never offered solutions. She simply listened. One evening he asked, "How do you stay so calm?" She thought for a moment, then said, "I stopped fighting life. I learned to walk with it. And I pray for strength every morning." That answer stayed with him longer than he expected. Their connection didn't feel exciting. It felt safe, and that scared him. Marriage was not part of Daniel's plan. He didn't feel ready. He wasn't stable. He had nothing impressive to offer. Sarah's family wasn't thrilled either. A man with no certainty didn't sound like a good future. But Sarah chose him, quietly, firmly. Their wedding was simple, held in a small church. No expensive decorations, no loud music. Just a few close friends and family, and prayers that filled the wooden pews with warmth. When Sarah walked toward him, dressed in a soft white gown, Daniel felt a strange mix of fear and gratitude. He leaned closer and said, "I can't promise you comfort or luxury." Sarah looked at him and replied, "Promise me honesty and effort." "That's enough." They didn't say much more. But that night, without realizing it, they made a promise. A promise that would be tested not in youth, but in time. Marriage didn't change their lives dramatically. Reality arrived on schedule. Morning alarms, long workdays, even longer evenings of exhaustion. Money was tight. Dreams were expensive. Some nights, Daniel lay awake wondering if he had made a mistake. If Sarah deserved more. She found joy in small things. A cup of tea waiting on the table, a quiet dinner, a shared silence. When Daniel lost his job, fear filled their home. Bills didn't pause for emotions. That night, Daniel sat in darkness, staring at nothing. He felt like he had failed. Sarah didn't ask what was wrong. She didn't offer reassurance. She simply sat beside him and rested her head on his shoulder. That was the first time Daniel understood something important. Love doesn't always speak. Sometimes, it just stays. They survived. Slowly, painfully, but together. Sarah began doing small sewing jobs. Daniel took temporary work wherever he could. Pride was sacrificed before commitment. Years passed. They became parents. Responsibility reshaped them. Fear changed into purpose. Their child grew, and with growth came distance. College, a new city, a new life. The day their child left home, the house felt strangely hollow. Sarah cleaned the empty room twice, as if hoping something might reappear. "It's too quiet," she said. Daniel replied, "It's just us again." And for the first time in years, they truly saw each other. Age arrived without announcement. Gray hair, slower movements, aching knees. Evenings became quieter. Walks became shorter. Yet something beautiful happened. They talked more, about the past, about the future they knew they wouldn't see, about the promise they had never spoken out loud, but always carried. One evening Sarah asked softly, "What if one day I become weak?" Daniel answered without hesitation, "Then I'll be your strength." Neither of them knew how real that promise would become. Time passed quietly, almost imperceptibly. Their child had grown and moved away. The house felt hollow, silent. Daniel and Sarah now lived in a world made just for two. "Do you ever miss the house as it used to be?" Sarah asked, folding a blanket. Daniel smiled faintly. "It's different now, but this is ours again." They shared small rituals to fill the quiet. Sunday walks near the church, evening prayers in the living room, lighting a candle together before bed. Then came the first warning. Sarah stumbled in the kitchen, her hands trembled slightly, and she forgot a simple step. Daniel's heart sank. He clutched a cross pendant as he whispered a prayer in the living room. "You're taking this too seriously," Sarah said, noticing his worry. "I'm fine, just need rest." Months passed. The small stumbles turned into forgetful moments. One evening she asked, "Daniel, what is your name?" He held her hands and said gently, "I am Daniel, your husband, always." The doctor confirmed that Sarah's memory issues were likely progressive. Daniel prayed silently every night in their church pew. "Lord, give me the strength to be her arms, her eyes, her memory, all that she needs." Now Daniel became caretaker, nurse, and constant companion. Meals prepared carefully, medicines given on time. Midnight vigils when Sarah awoke in confusion. Sometimes Sarah became irritable or restless. Daniel reminded himself, "This is not a burden, it is love lived fully." Sarah's memory began to fade like sand slipping through fingers. She sometimes forgot their wedding anniversary, sometimes didn't remember friends' names. One day she looked at Daniel blankly. "Have you met before?" Daniel smiled through the ache. "Yes, in the rain. Do you remember?" Memory may fail, but love does not. One evening Sarah spoke quietly, "I'm scared I might forget you one day." We will capture every memory, every moment, in a diary. If words fail, memories will remain. They began to write together. First their youth, first meeting, wedding, child's birth, quiet evenings, Sunday prayers. The diary became sacred, preserving their love. Friends visited less. Some were uncomfortable around Sarah's confusion, but in their small home, love grew larger. Daniel read aloud from the diary when Sarah seemed lost. She sometimes smiled knowingly, sometimes forgot again. Sometimes illness made Sarah act like a child. "I want to go home," she said once. Daniel asked gently, "Which home, my love?" She answered, "The one with my mother." Daniel held her, whispered soft prayers, and let her feel safe. Sometimes clarity returned. Sarah would look at Daniel and ask with full recognition, "Daniel, you are my husband, right?" Tears welled in Daniel's eyes. "And I always will be." One evening, sitting on the porch, Sarah turned to Daniel. "There was a promise, remember?" Daniel nodded. "The promise of old age." Sarah smiled. "And you kept it." Daniel held her hand tighter. "I'm still keeping it." Sarah's memory worsened until one night. Miraculously, she remembered everything. She looked at Daniel fully, recognizing him. "Daniel." He asked softly, "Do you remember me?" "Every moment, every promise, every prayer," she whispered. They spent the night recounting their youth, wedding, child, Sunday prayers, and most importantly, their promise of old age. As morning light peaked, Sarah held Daniel's hand. "You kept your promise." Daniel replied, "Not yet." She smiled and drifted quietly, forever. Morning came. The warmth of her presence was gone. Daniel held her hand long after the doctors left. The house smelled of coffee and old books. She was gone, but present. Funeral, small Christian service, hymns, prayers. Daniel held the Bible she loved. People said, "She is in a better place." Daniel nodded quietly. He knew where her better place was, by his side, in quiet moments they had shared. Daniel read aloud. "Old age was never a curse. It was a promise we kept together through every sunrise and every storm." Daniel grew older. Every Sunday he walked to the church alone, lighting a candle in memory of Sarah. Neighbors asked, "How do you bear the solitude?" "I am not alone," he said. "I carry her in every breath, every prayer, every heartbeat." One quiet morning, Daniel sat with the diary open, gazed at Sarah's photograph, smiled, and whispered, "I'm coming, my love." And he closed his eyes for the last time. In the cemetery by the church, two graves rested side by side. One read, "Sarah," the other, "Daniel." Inscription, "Here rest not two bodies, but one love." Old age is not weakness when someone holds your hand. Real love is not about grand gestures or youthful passion. It is about staying, holding hands, praying together, living quietly, faithfully, patiently, until the very end. Daniel and Sarah kept their promise, and in doing so, they became more than just two people. They became a story of love that time could never erase.